Liberty is my religion. Liberty of hand, of brain, of thought, of labor. Liberty is a word hated by kings and princes, loathed by priests and popes. It is a word that shatters thrones and altars, that leaves the monarch without subjects and the outstretched hand of superstition without arms. Liberty is the blossom and fruit of justice, the perfume and rain of progress, love, and joy. Nothing gives greater promise to the future than the fact that women are achieving intellectual and physical liberty. It is refreshing to see that here in our country there are thousands of women who think and express their thoughts, who are thoroughly free and thoroughly conscientious, who have been neither narrowed nor corrupted by a heartless creed. Women who do not stand before the altar of a cruel faith with downcast eyes of timid acquiescence, or pay to impudent authority the tribute of a thoughtless yes. They are no longer satisfied with being told. They examine for themselves. They demand the rights that naturally belong to intelligent human beings. If wives, they wish to be the equal to husbands. If mothers, they wish to rear their children in an atmosphere of love, liberty, and philosophy. They believe women can discharge all her duties without the aid of superstition, and preserve all that is true, pure, and tender without sacrificing in the temple of absurdity the convictions of the soul. Woman is not the intellectual inferior to man. She has lacked not mind, but opportunity. In the long night of barbarism, physical strength and the cruelty to use it was the badge of superiority. Muscle was more than mind. In the ignorant age of faith, the loving nature of woman was abused. Her conscience was rendered morbid and diseased. It might even be said that she was betrayed by her own virtues. At best, she secured not opportunity, but flattery, the preface to degradation. She was deprived of liberty, and without that, nothing is worth the having. I understand that for many thousands and thousands of years, the great questions of existence have been settled by religion. I understand that for all that time, men and women got their information from priests. I know that when India was supreme, they worshipped Brahma and Vishnu, and when Rome held in its hand the red sword of war, they worshipped Jove, and now our religion has swept to the top. Any man living in India a few hundred to 1,000 years ago would have said, this is the only true religion. Why? Because here is the only true civilization. And now all those religions having died, although they were all true religions, we say ours is the only true religion because ours is the greatest commercial nation on earth. Man has made every religion in this world, and that religion has been good or bad according to whether the men who made it were good or bad. If they were savages and barbarians, they made a god like Jehovah. Every man makes his own god. Show me the God a man worships, and I will tell you what kind of man he is. Every man makes his own God. Every man worships his own God. And if you are a civilized man, you will have a civilized God. And we have been civilizing our God now for hundreds of years. He's getting better every day. I understand that many people believe that it is only in the Bible where one can find a true and perfect standard of morality. There are many good precepts, wise sayings, good rules and regulations in the Bible. And these are mingled with bad precepts, foolish sayings, absurd rules, and cruel laws. In Exodus, we are given an account of the manner with which Jehovah delivered the Jews from Egyptian bondage. We now know that the Hebrews were never enslaved by the Egyptians. We know this because there cannot be found in the Hebrew language one word of Egyptian origin, nor can there be found in the language of the Egyptians one word of Hebrew origin. Therefore, we know that the Jews and the Egyptians could not have lived together for hundreds of years. Certainly, Exodus was not written to teach morality. In that book, you cannot find one word against human slavery. As a matter of fact, Jehovah was a believer in that institution. The killing of cattle with hail and disease, the murder of every firstborn so that in every house is death, certainly wasn't moral. It was fiendish. Most of the laws found in Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy are good. Many are absurd and cruel. The entire ceremonial of worship is insane. Most of the punishments for the violation of laws are brutal. The fact is that the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, upholds nearly all crimes. And to say that it is moral is as absurd to say that it is merciful or true. Jehovah murdered 70,000 Jews because David took a census of the people. David, according to the account, was the guilty one, but only the innocent were killed. The book of Job shocks the heart of every good man and woman. The children of Job are killed because of a wager between God and the devil. Nothing is done for the children who are killed. The problem is that the spirit of the Old Testament is bad, selfish, and cruel. The most fiendish things are commanded, and applauded. Of course, we must remember that the ancient Jews were savages slowly crawling toward the light. We must give them credit for the noble things they said, and we must be charitable enough to forgive their flaws and even their crimes. I know that many Christians believe that the old Bible has flaws, but they insist that the New Testament is the flower and perfect fruit. I admit there are many good things in the New Testament, and if we take from that book the dogmas of eternal pain, of infinite revenge, of the atonement, the necessity of shedding blood, of human sacrifice, if we take from that book the doctrines of non-resistance, of loving enemies, the notion that prosperity is the result of wickedness and that poverty is in preparation for paradise, if we take all these out and keep the good, reasonable statements, those creditable to good conduct, then we can have a fairly good moral guide. Narrow, but moral. You would have nothing on human rights, nothing in favor of the family, nothing for education, for free inquiry, but you would have a good moral guide. On the other hand, if we took the extreme phrases, the foolish ones, you'd have a creed that would satisfy an insane asylum. If we took the cruel phrases, the ones that inculcate eternal hatred, verses that writhe and hiss like serpents, you'd have a creed that would shock the heart of a hyena. The Bible is not a good moral guide. Any man or woman who follows all of its precepts is an enemy of society and will end up their days in an institution or a penitentiary. These religions teach the slave virtues. They make inanimate things holy and falsehoods sacred. They invent artificial crimes, to eat meat on Friday, to be happy during Lent, to eat on a fast day, to dispute a priest, to ask for evidence. To give your honest opinion about Jehovah, Mohammed, or Christ is far worse than to maliciously slander your neighbor. To question or doubt miracles is far worse than to deny known fact. Only the credulous, the cringers, the meek, the kneelers, the unquestioning, the true believers are judged to be virtuous. It is not enough to be generous, useful, kind. In addition to this, you must believe. These things are the foes of morality. They subvert all natural tendencies towards virtue. Happiness is the only good. Everything that secures happiness is good. That is to say, moral. Everything that diminishes well-being is bad. That is to say, immoral. Therefore, everything that is good is moral and everything that is bad is immoral. What then is or can be said to be a good moral guide? The simplest answer is one word: intelligence. The idea that future happiness depends upon a belief in God is monstrous. It is the infamy of infamies. The notion that faith in Christ is rewarded with an eternity of bliss, while the dependence on reason, observation, and experience merits everlasting pain, is too absurd for refutation. What man or woman who ever thinks can believe that blood can appease God? And yet our entire religious system is based upon that belief. The ancient Jews pacified Jehovah with the blood of animals, and according to the Christian system, the blood of God, the blood of Christ, softened God's heart a little and rendered possible the salvation of a fortunate few. It is hard to conceive how the human brain can give assent to such terrible ideas, or how any sane man or woman can read the Bible and still believe in the doctrine of divine inspiration. We have heard talk enough. We have listened to all of the empty, vapid, drowsy sermons that we wish to hear. We have read your Bible and the works of your best minds. We have heard your prayers, your solemn groans, and your reverential amens. All of these amount to less than nothing. We want one fact. We beg at the doors of your churches for just one fact. We pass our hats along your pews, beneath your pulpits, and implore you for just one fact. Give us one fact for charity. Your miracles are too ancient. The eyewitnesses have been dead for 2,000 years. Everybody seems to be afraid to give their honest opinion on the subject of God. They imagine some being up yonder who would be filled with wrath at some poor man or woman who decided to express their best thought. Can you injure God? No. Why? Because he is infinite. You cannot visit one injury upon him. And yet, for all these hundreds of years, the clergy have been telling the people there is a crime called blasphemy. There is a personal God who made the world. He made you, and you ought to get down on your knees and thank him. Thank him for what? Ought the beggar to thank God who is starving amidst plenty? Ought the man who toils year after year, works hard, and yet never sees a decent meal? Ought the woman who is married to a drunkard? Ought the invalid who is slave to some hereditary disease? Ought the one who is deformed? Ought the millions of slaves to thank God? Let us be honest. If we are to credit God with all that is good, we must balance the account and credit him with all that is bad. It is contended by many that ours is a Christian government founded upon the Bible, and all who view that book as false or foolish are destroying the foundations of our country. The fact is, our government was not founded upon the rights of gods, but upon the rights of men. Our Constitution was not framed to declare and uphold the deity of Christ, but the sacredness of humanity. We are the only nation ever to be conceived by the people, for the people. We are the only nation on earth with which the gods have had nothing to do, and yet there are those cowardly and dishonest who would solemnly declare that ours is a Christian government and that our free institutions are based upon the infamous laws of Jehovah. All laws for the purpose of making men worship God are born of the same spirit that kindled the fires, that burned the heretics, and lovingly built the dungeons of the Inquisition. All laws for the purpose of defining and punishing blasphemy were passed by impudent bigots and should be immediately repealed by honest men. We are controlled today by men who do not exist. We are controlled today by phenomena that never did exist. We are controlled today by ghosts and dead men. I propose that we should govern ourselves. I propose that we should let the past go and let the dead past bury the dead past. I propose that Americans have the courage and the intelligence and the nerve to control and govern themselves without the aid of superstition. We have already compared the benefits of theology and science. When the theologian governed, the world was full of huts and hovels for the many, palaces and cathedrals for the few. To nearly all the children of man, reading and writing were unknown arts. The poor were clad in rags and skins, they devoured crusts and gnawed bones. The day of science dawned, and the luxuries of a century ago are the necessities of today. Men and women in the middle ranks of life have more of the conveniences and elegancies than the kings and princes of the theological times. And above and beyond this is the development of mind. There is more of value in the brain of the average man or woman of today, of the master mechanic, of the chemist, of the inventor, than there was in the brains of the world 400 years ago. These blessings did not fall from the sky. These benefits did not drop from the outstretched hands of priests. They were not found behind altars or within cathedrals, nor were they searched for with holy candle. They were not discovered with the closed eyes of prayer, nor were they in answer to superstitious supplication. These are the blessings of freedom, the benefits of reason, observation, and experience. And for them all, man is indebted to man. Superstition has done enough already. Religion suspects anything that is pleasant, anything that is joyful, and they always have the idea that God feels best when we feel worse. They have stoned to death the joy of nature with the cold rock of ignorance and fear. Church and state are two vultures that have fed at the heart of chained Prometheus. I say, let the human race have a chance. Let every man and woman think for themselves and express that thought. There is no wrath in the serene heavens. There is no scowl in the blue of the sky. Upon the throne of the universe, tyranny does not sit as king. That is my doctrine. And I will do what I can while I live to increase in the American people that sense of independence and personhood. I believe in the gospel of this world. I believe in happiness right here. I do not believe in drinking skim milk all my life with the expectation of butter beyond the clouds. I believe, I say, in the gospel of this world. This is a mighty good world. There are many good people in the world. There's lots of happiness in the world. And I say, let every one of us work to increase it. Our civilization is not Christian. It did not fall from the skies. It is not the result of divine inspiration. It is the child of discovery, of invention, of applied knowledge. That is to say, of free thought and science. When the human race becomes great and grand enough to admit that all have equal rights, when thought is untrammeled, when worship means the doing of useful things, and religion means the discharge of obligation to one's fellow man, then and only then will the world be civilized. Thank you. Cut.